that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. So lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the famous Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
In the flesh.
I'll be giving autographs after the show.
After the show. You got to wait. Okay, this show is taped on Thursday morning, and if you're watching it after the 13th of October, which you almost certainly are, it's too late. Sorry. Anyway, every day I get up and look at the news on the internet that has to do with energy and climate change, and each item that I find that's interesting, I package a 50-word or so synopsis along with a link to the original article, and I put those up on my website, geoharvey.com, Geoharvey. And 10 to 15 of those every day, 365 days a year, except for leap year when it's 366. Man, and you know, I don't get paid for this. It's actually, that's not entirely true. You can donate if you want, but nevertheless, if you hear a date and you hear the name of an article that you want to investigate, you can go to the website, geoharvey.wordpress.com. Look at the calendar in the upper left corner of the screen, click on the date, and it will take you to somewhere within a few articles.
Some of the articles we discussed are very comprehensive and well worth following up if you're interested in what we say.
Yeah.
I mean, we could spend the whole show talking about one
article. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So let's get going and tell everybody what's happened.
Alrighty.
There you go. There's a picture back there.
Well, I'll get it up for you.
Not that it's an interesting picture. It's actually kind of a really boring picture, and they don't even tell you who these people are. But there they are, showing off like they're important and what they're doing is important. Okay, this is from Clean Technica. What do you got?
Paris Agreement ratified early. World climate work now on track.
This is worth talking about.
This is a goodie.
This is good. In Strasbourg, France, yesterday being Thursday, October 6th, and it's yesterday at the time this was put online, the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, the president of the UN's climate group, COP21, Ségolène Royal, and European Commissioner President Jean-Claude Juncker, okay, that sounds a mix of German and French. I don't speak French, I do speak German, you know, what can I say? Witnessed the European Parliament signing approval of the ratification of the Paris Agreement. And what that did is it means that the Paris Agreement is international law.
Not quite yet.
No?
There's still a few countries have not ratified it.
But
the majority is on board. China's on board.
Yeah, the United
US
States.
is on board. India is on board. Canada hasn't done it yet.
Well,
but they will.
I think they actually did.
They may have by now.
Yeah. It became law, I believe, Tom, when 55% of the countries that agreed to it, representing 55% of the carbon emissions, signed on, and they have done that.
Well, you may very well be true. It's a fact no matter what.
Yeah. And the thing that's interesting about this to me is that there has been widespread speculation that the reason why the European Union did this, and I should back up a second, this event took place 5 years before it was expected to take place. They thought this event was going to take place in 2021 or 2022, but it took place this year.
Yeah.
And the reason why the speculation is because Donald Trump is running for president of the United States, and they don't want.
That's interesting.
Yeah, Donald Trump.
Don't tell him what he might do.
There's no telling what he might do.
I don't think even he knows what he might do.
And I'm quite sure he doesn't know what he might do, but he's always going to say that he does. There was a UN official who said that they thought that he was an extremely dangerous man, and there are a lot of people who are very upset about the idea that he's running for president because there's no telling what he might do. And, you know, I've got more comments about that. I've got enough to say about that we could keep going all hour.
We could keep talking the whole show on that one.
So have you got anything else on this one, Tom?
Not on that one.
Okay. let's go on. That was,
There is one quick one. Only 10 countries
yeah.
with emissions above 1% are yet to ratify.
Oh, wow.
So they're, you know,
This is a lot of countries.
Everybody's on board.
Everybody's on board.
Everybody's on
That
board.
was Thursday, October 6th, as is the next one, which comes from Seeking Alpha.
oh, this is a little bit of a propaganda piece, I think.
Little bit of a propaganda piece.
ExxonMobil says its shale oil assets are not threatened.
No. There's not. We're going to keep selling fossil fuels until Noah's flood has been revisited. You know, really, the ocean levels are going to have to rise to the top of what's that mountain? The mountain in Turkey.
Ararat.
Mount Ararat, until Ararat has been covered with water. That's how long they're going to be, pumping oil. The COP21 agreement is now law, and yet oil majors are still contending that the price of oil will recover. Well, it will, actually. Almost certainly it'll recover.
Eventually, it certainly will.
Peabody Energy has a similar view about its prospects for expanding production of coal.
Well, as I said earlier, it's propaganda here.
Peabody Energy, for anybody who's interested, is bankrupt and hoping to be able to recover from that. And of course, they're telling everybody who they can talk to that things are going to be just dandy when coal becomes king again. And ExxonMobil says everything will be just dandy. They're however many trillions of dollars worth of oil they've got in the ground are going to get pulled out and sold. And honestly, I think it's fraud.
Well, there's a little bit of a takeaway here that's buried in here. So ExxonMobil is participating in 30% of the world's carbon capture and storage projects.
Oh, it drives me crazy when I hear about that. The projects they've got for carbon capture and storage are inane. They're just stupid. You're going to capture all this carbon dioxide, pump it underground, liquefy it, and let it leak out. So what's going to happen? It means that the carbon emissions are going to keep going long after humanity has disappeared from the planet.
But ExxonMobil will be making money from carbon capture
on the short term. They're interested in making money this quarter, next quarter, maybe the quarter after that. Are they going to be making money in 2050? Well, they'll say they will, because that will keep the price of their stock up, they hope.
That's probably who this is intended to influence.
Absolutely.
Stockholders and investors.
Yeah. Need we go on that?
Yeah,
one?
let's move on. This is an interesting one. This is a very interesting
from
one.
From Clean Technica, still October 6th.
No worries, we'll make biofuel from trees. And it's about a breakthrough.
About a breakthrough.
A chemical breakthrough.
That's right. And this is actually, from my point of view, this is really interesting. We may soon have gasoline from forest waste. And, as I think about this, that means including dead leaves. Because what they're interested in is lignin. This week, the US EPA proposed some biofuel rule changes that would enable producers to add willow trees and poplar trees to the renewable fuel mix. Only last month, researchers at Washington State University announced a process to extract high-purity lignin as a source material. Now, about a third of the weight of wood is lignin. And lignin has historically been a throwaway product from the paper-making industry.
Okay.
This is a serious problem for paper making and for the environment, because they got to get rid of this stuff.
What do they do with it?
Well, it used to be they just dumped it in the river and didn't worry about the fact that they were killing the fish.
Oh, okay.
But it's now they're what's happening is they're finding this lignin has got some really interesting characteristics. One of which is that it's a it's a thermoplastic. You can make plastic out of it and mold it.
Oh, just by itself?
By itself.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and what they do to do this is they mix in another chemical that also comes in from trees called cellulose.
I've heard of that.
But here they're saying if we extract the lignin, and the cellulose has got other uses. I mean, it can be used for making paper. It can be used for making fiber. There's a lot of stuff going on there. They can make gasoline out of lignin. And this is, as I said, from Clean
Well, that's
Packaging.
what basically this article's about.
But you
Developed
know-
a new process of extracting lignin.
Yeah. I wrote an article which will not be in the October Green Energy Times, but it may be in the December Green Energy Times, or it may just begin, because it's a very long article. Too long to really deal with. But the Navy has been making aviation fuel
We've talked about that.
out of carbon dioxide that's dissolved in the seawater that doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
And the statement that I went over the spreadsheet, the statement that appears in one of the sources that I used for that said they could do it on land using energy from wind power for $1 a gallon. Aviation fuel at $1 a gallon.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and of course it must cost them 10 times that to get it brought out to the.
It costs $8 a gallon to get it
I
out
was
to
wrong.
an
I said
aircraft
10
carrier.
times. It's
Yeah,
8 times.
8 times. And you know, just in case anybody wants to know, the reason it costs $8 a gallon to get aviation fuel to an aircraft carrier is because you have to have a very special tanker to do that. You
Yeah.
got to have a tanker that can catch up with an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
Find one. Find one. And you know they have to.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah, and what the Navy found was that by using their nuclear reactor, they've got two on an aircraft carrier, by using most of the production of one of them, 200 megawatts, they could make 82,000 gallons of aviation fuel a day from carbon dioxide that's just dissolved in the water. And at a cost of $6 a gallon, which is cheaper than getting tankers to deliver it. So they
Sounds
save.
like it is, yeah.
Yeah, they save money. But a couple of years ago, they did a study of what it would take on land, and what they found was that you could make it on land using wind power for about $1 a gallon, according to the source that I used for that, which was in fact Wikipedia. But when I went to Wikipedia's source, and then I went for the source of that, I couldn't find that figure. So I did the math from the spreadsheet from the 2009 Navy release, which said $1.68 a gallon in 2009 using the technology that was available then.
Which
So
has improved since.
It has improved since. So $1 a gallon is certainly in believable territory. And when you consider that wind power can be below zero cost at night, it's conceivable that we could have aviation fuel, gasoline, home heating oil, kerosene, and diesel oil and so forth that is carbon neutral at zero cost.
Zero cost.
Zero cost.
I like that.
This
Might
is-
be zero cost. Ain't going to be zero selling price.
It's not going to be zero selling price. No, that's at zero cost of manufacture. You still have to get it to the gas station.
Yeah.
And that's going to cost money because you have to pay somebody to drive that truck. Oh, brother.
If there are any trucks in the future.
Well, there'll be trucks.
Yeah, something like that.
Electric powered trucks.
Well, we talked about electric power trucks in Sweden.
Yes, we have.
What
Okay.
we didn't talk about is this is only a mile long.
Well, there are details. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Our
here.
next item is from Energy Matters.
And this one is UK solar panels beat coal-fired power generation.
This is kind of incredible to me. And part of the reason why let me just read this. New analysis from Carbon Brief shows UK solar panels generated more electricity over the past 6 months than all of the nation's coal-fired power stations combined. Coal output over the period was equivalent to 5.2% of the UK's overall electric demand, nearly 10% of
Solar output.
What I'm reading doesn't make sense, but it's
Solar output was equivalent to 5.2%.
percent, and coal output was 4.7%.
Oh, there we go. Yep,
coal
yep.
output has crashed. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
coal output was 15 times that.
Oh, yeah.
And solar output in the United States is about 1.5%.
It's not very much yet.
And the UK, is there a single part of the UK that is south of the northernmost part of Maine? No.
I don't think
The
so.
entire,
Yeah. England isn't exactly a place where you think of to go.
Actually,
to get sunshine.
I'm probably wrong about that. But if you think about it, UK is north of Germany for the most part.
Yeah.
And there's no part of Germany, I'm probably right. No part of Germany that isn't north of the northernmost part of Vermont.
Okay.
But 5.2% of the demand is in the UK, which is notoriously foggy, which is notoriously far north, and the United States is lagging behind and has 25% of the U.S. output is about 1.5%. The UK's output is 5.2%. Go figure.
I think I got the answer already.
Yeah.
Talked about ExxonMobil, didn't we?
Yeah, well, we've got a big propaganda tool going on here. Okay, we're up to Friday, October 7th, and we have an item from The Independent and a new picture to look at. This is interesting.
So let's get this picture
Yeah,
going.
let's put that picture up. There you go, Tom.
Go
now
fly
it
a
is
kite,
up.
George.
Yeah, go fly a kite yourself. Okay.
One of the world's first kite-driven power stations is set to open in Scotland, and that's a picture of it.
This is actually going to be putting power on the grid. A commercial-scale 500 kilowatt kite-driven power station is set to be created in Scotland. The kites fly at heights of up to 450 meters, which is not all that high.
1,500 feet.
Yeah, in a figure-8 pattern, pulling tethers as they rise, which turn a turbine that produces electricity. Two kites work in tandem. One is being blown upward as the other one floats back down.
This is brilliant. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
By the way, these are not your average backyard kites.
No, they're not.
This full-size kite's 100 feet wide.
Yeah, and it's got if you look at the picture on the screen, you'll see that there's some kind of device hanging from it. And I'm not sure what is in that device, but I think it's probably motor controls and so forth to control the kite so that it's going to go up or it's going to come down. And that kite has an appearance that makes me think that maybe it's inflated.
I think it is. It's a little balloon, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's more of a kite than it is a balloon.
Yeah. It may be that they have it inflated to keep it from kind of
sort of looks
crashing.
like an air mattress.
Yeah, sort of like an air mattress. Anyway, this is an interesting development, I think, and the idea, but you do have to worry about these kites because there's a number of things that are wrong with them, okay? One of which is they will destroy the appearance of the Vermont countryside. The second thing is that they make too much noise. They kill birds that fly into their tethers, and they will keep people awake at night and produce kite turbine syndrome.
They were also talking about in this article what they call kite-tunes.
Kite-tunes?
Kite balloon hybrids.
Yeah.
Or flying turbines that can capture the energy of a jet stream at altitudes of 20,000 feet.
Yeah, well, that is a point where the tether becomes a problem because you're going to have to keep airplanes from hitting it.
I think you're right.
Yeah. I remember when the WRLP TV station in Winchester, New Hampshire was hit by an airplane. It wasn't the tower. It was the one of the cables holding up the tower. A guy and his son were in an airplane, and they hit the cable with the wing of an airplane in the fog. They couldn't see it at all, and the whole tower crashed.
I bet.
And it was.
How'd they make out?
How did they?
Yeah.
My understanding is that they were unhappy.
They managed to land safely.
No, they did not.
Oh.
The plane crashed and they were both killed, unfortunately. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay.
We're moving on to Ohio this time.
Ohio, WCPO, which is undoubtedly a television station or radio station.
This is an interesting article, too.
Yes, it is.
Lawmakers race to change Ohio's renewable energy standards.
They've
been playing with this for the last few years.
Yeah. Time is running out for those Ohio Republicans who want to change the state's renewable energy standards. And a battle with Governor John Kasich could ensue. Legislation passed in 2014 put a 2-year freeze on the standards while committee worked on modifications. Unchanged, the standards go back into effect at the beginning of 2017. It looks like the standards are going to go back into effect. They are going to have to move toward more renewables. John Kasich is not going to accept any change to the current standards
And
that
he's
are
a
going.
Republican.
He's a Republican. He ran for president of the United States, and I voted for him. By the way,
Did you?
I did indeed
Uh-huh.
in the Vermont primary, and so unfortunately, we've got Donald Trump running, and that's. There's a lot of people unhappy about that one.
Well, a little takeaway from the article is
Yep.
that the utility companies in Ohio have already easily been meeting the standards.
Yeah, why do you suppose that is? Maybe it's because they're saving money by doing it. Okay, we're up to
Moving
Saturday,
right along
October
here.
8th, and
We got another picture.
we have another picture from PV Magazine.
Wow.
Yeah.
This isn't a pretty picture.
It's not a pretty picture. Sorry about that.
Europe urged to begin mass decommissioning of fossil fuel plants.
Yeah, wow.
Wow.
If the European Union is to meet the terms laid out in the Paris Agreement to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in 2050 by 80 to 95% compared to 1990 levels, member states have to act fast and act now, beginning the process of decarbonizing according to a report just published by the European Environmental Agency. They have a lot of work to do, and they know it.
Well, what they're saying is the solution is polluting power plants should be slowly and systematically replaced with cleaner sources of energy.
Yeah,
That's the
right.
answer.
That's the answer. That's the answer. And we have to get rid of all that mess. And by the way, for anybody who's interested, completely separately from climate change, fossil fuel emissions account for the overwhelming majority of outdoor air pollution,
Yeah.
and some of the indoor air pollution, and outdoor air pollution kills people at a rate of about one person every 10
Well, we've talked
seconds.
about that several times. in
Yes,
this
we
show.
have indeed.
It's a hidden cost.
It's a hidden
you
cost.
Don't think about it, but it's real.
Yep, and the cost to people who are threatened with health problems worldwide averages about $250 to $1,000 a year, depending upon whose figures you're using. And that is borne primarily by wealthy countries, and it's borne in medical insurance and taxes. So if you're paying medical insurance or you're paying taxes, you're being hit by air pollution costs, even in Vermont. Thank you very much.
As a side note, is renewables are getting cheaper all the time.
They are indeed.
And in some countries already, they are the cheapest form of energy.
That's right. That, by the way, came from PV Magazine. I think I said that before.
I think you did.
I think I did. The next one comes from Houston Chronicle.
Electricity prices drop as coal plants close.
Wow. Residential prices for electricity have dropped this year for the first time since 2002, despite worries that shutting down coal-fired plants and relying more on wind and solar would ruin the economy, according to the Energy Information Administration, which, by the way, is almost always wrong about forward projections, but that's okay. This is not a forward projection.
Well,
This is not what the leaders of the defenders of burning coal said would happen.
I don't have much to say about this one because the Houston Chronicle wouldn't let me in.
Oh, they wouldn't let you in. Well, I should probably find some other source for this. Nevertheless, I'm sorry
I try
about
to go
that.
around.
I know you do.
behind
You're
it.
very skilled at that.
Every link I linked went back to the Houston Chronicle,
Yeah.
and they want money.
They want money. And unfortunately, I put these things up and they let me in. And if I go in later the same day, they let me in. And I don't know that they aren't going to let you in the next day.
Yeah.
So, and another organization that does that to an extent nowhere near as badly is the Brattleboro Reformer.
They keep everything on for about 2 weeks, and then you can't get it again.
A lot of stuff you can.
But you got to pay?
No, you can get it if you pay.
Yeah,
but
that's what I'm saying.
they have a lot of stuff that you can get without paying that's old, but they mark certain articles as premium and they just don't.
Okay.
Yeah. So moving on to E&T Magazine, that is E ampersand T.
This is also a very interesting article. Molten silicon offers tenfold improvement to solar energy storage.
Wow.
We're talking sand here.
Yeah, we're talking about sand.
Melting sand.
Melting sand. According to the team of the Solar Energy Institute at the University Polytechnic of Madrid, which is in Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish either, and I'm not going to insult Spanish people by pronouncing their language wrong, even if they can't agree on how to pronounce it. Anyway, up to 1 megawatt hour of energy can be stored in just 1 cubic meter of molten silicon. Silicon is the most abundant element in the Earth's crust. The technology holds a promise for dealing with intermittency of renewable power generation.
Interesting thing about this article, I got lost in it.
Yeah.
But it's such high temperature. Oh, in order for this to work, they have to run up to 2500 F.
Which is
pretty hot.
It's pretty hot. It glows white hot.
That's just what I'm saying. At such high temperatures, silicon intensely shines.
Yes.
In the same way that the sun does.
Yes.
So they got to have special photovoltaic cells to capture that shine, but they're much more efficient. This is amazing.
Yeah. I used to work in chemical plants, and one of the things that I did was work with kilns and ovens.
Yeah.
And we would run. I would walk up to a kiln that was at 1200 degrees and just reach into it with if I was putting something in, I would just put it in with garden gloves on my hands at 1200 degrees.
You were quick.
You can't really pause in there very much. But we had special gloves that were insulated, and those things were what I used if the temperature was much above that. But the temperatures we dealt with, they were frigging hot, and they only went up to about 2200 degrees. And at 2200 degrees, we're talking about white hot. And above that, I would expect it, you would hurt your eyes to look at it.
Well, I'm sure all of this is contained, so you're not going to be looking at anything.
No, nobody's going to be looking at this, except for the people next door who have to not only put up with the fact that it shines in their living room wall, but it also makes noise and kills birds and costs more. Okay, let's get away from that. Sunday, October 9th, and we have a wind farm near Pincher Creek, Alberta. This is from the Edmonton Journal.
Alberta's shift to renewable power likely to be less costly than feared.
Well, what? You mean renewable power is going to cost less than people thought? How could that be? Alberta's shift to move to shift electric production from coal plants to renewable energy will likely cost less than people expected, a specialist in the field said. The province plans by 2030 to phase out coal generation, which is amazing when you consider how completely dependent on fossil fuels this province was, which provide approximately 40% of the province's power capacity, replacing it with renewables and natural gas. Well, that's part of it. They want to put in natural gas, but isn't that a pretty wind farm?
Well, the windmills are spoiling the ridgeline.
Well, the thing that I think is spoiling is all those poles that are down on the bottom, and they, by the way, give you an idea of how tall.
They're not windmills.
They're not.
Poles.
They're just small utility poles. They're real small utility poles, but they're down at the bottom. Those mountains are beautiful, and the wind turbines almost look like they belong there. Okay, move on.
I think we can.
Okay, the next one we've got is from the Exponent Telegram.
Okay. Duke Energy CEO sees the end of coal-fired generation.
This is Duke Energy.
Is one of the biggest coal-fired owning companies in the world.
Yeah. The CEO of Duke Energy recently said her company could stop generating electricity from coal between 2030 and 2040. Duke CEO Lynn Good said in an interview with Bloomberg that the company's current move away from coal will continue no matter who occupies the White House at this time next year. So stick that in your pipe and smoke, Donald Trump.
This article came from a West Virginia newspaper, and of course they're saying this is bad news for West Virginia's thermal coal mining operations.
Well, it's bad news for their thermal coal mining operations, but it's not bad news for West Virginia necessarily. And in fact, it's probably good news for West Virginia because those miners can get jobs elsewhere. You've talked about this many times, Tom, about the fact that the mines have been laying people off for years so that they can do mountaintop removal mining instead of holes in the ground.
A mountaintop removal operation is run with about 10 guys.
Yeah.
Underground coal mine usually has a couple of hundred.
Yeah. And of course, mountaintop removal mining is okay because it doesn't kill birds in Vermont, doesn't destroy Vermont habitats.
Not at all.
No, not at all. And the stones,
job on West Virginia.
Yeah,
though.
the stone.
I have seen it, and
boulders,
it's horrible.
They roll down into the streams
Yeah.
in West Virginia. That will. It'll take centuries for that to maybe millennia for that to get enough soil over the top to support any kind of life. Yeah, that doesn't matter because it's not in Vermont, and you know. If it isn't in Vermont, you can't see it from your home, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, Gulf Times.
All righty.
TEPCO.
I'm trying to figure out which mouse I'm going to use.
This is fun. I have 2 computers, 1 mouse. Tom has 1 computer, 2 mice.
2 mice.
Figure it out.
Tokyo Electric Power Company still struggling.
TEPCO, Tokyo Electric Power Company, is still struggling to put the Fukushima nuclear disaster behind it, admitting this week that paying for decommissioning the plant in one go risks leaving it insolvent. The Fukushima disaster and the issues arising from it will ultimately cost more than 11 trillion yen, which is $106 billion, according to one recent academic study. $106 billion. That's a lot of money.
I would say, well, they're looking for help. They're trying to get the government to pay them.
Do you know that $106 billion is approximately $200 million per nuclear reactor in operation worldwide?
I didn't know that.
This is a huge amount of money. This is a huge loss. And huge loss.
I mean, they're finally coming to grips with what they've known all along but haven't wanted to face up to. This is going to cost them, it's already cost them a lot of money.
A lot of money.
It's going to cost them much more.
Yeah, a lot of money.
And it's going to take 30 to 40 years to decommission everything.
Well, so they're not going to have to pay for it with one go anyway. But we've got another thing coming up. Should we move to it? This
Why
is
not?
fun.
Why not?
This is Monday, October 10th.
Got another picture coming up here, and I'll get
there you go.
Up.
There you go. Come on. Up. There you
There
go.
we go.
Perfect. Okay. And this is from Vermont Biz. We're back to Vermont.
And it's talking about Encore Renewable Energy Company commissions 2 1.4 megawatts solar projects.
Yes, Encore Renewable Energy.
They just flipped a switch on these.
Yeah.
That's a real picture.
That is a picture of one of them. That's the project in Stowe. The Encore Renewable Energy has commissioned 2 separate 1.4 megawatt solar arrays for the town of Stowe Electric Department and the village of Hyde Park Electric Department, respectively. The 2 projects were financed with low interest debt under the U.S. Treasury Department Clean Renewable Energy Bonds Program. And I want to point out for anybody who's looking at that particular array is a utility scale array. It is a utility scale array. It makes a lot of noise, keeps the neighbors awake at night, kills birds, destroys the environment. And by the way, in case you are concerned about utility scale arrays, that array happens not to have been built in the middle of the woods.
It was a gravel pit.
It was built on a gravel pit, which there's precious little you can do with a gravel pit to use it, aside from putting utility scale solar arrays on it. Now, we don't have enough gravel pits in Vermont for all the utility scale solar arrays that we need, because we can only develop about 20% of the current load of our current demand for electricity on using rooftop solar. And we're going to have to increase that demand by about 3 times because we've got to heat with it, and we're going to have to do our transportation with it in the future.
Well, all these things do make sense.
They do.
It's just going to be a matter of time before they're implemented.
Right.
They're going to be done for economic reasons.
Right, but we don't have enough gravel pits. And if you put in enough brownfields, we don't have enough brownfields. And if you put in quarries, we don't have enough quarries. We don't have enough of all of these things put together to give us all of the power that we need. Even if we cover our parking lots, we don't get enough. But we can do all of those things without really destroying the environment. I mean, look at that. Would it look worse to have that thing covered with just a scar of gravel in the countryside? I mean, it's not going to, having it, why don't you put the picture back up? having that there, having solar panels there is not worse than having gravel.
I don't think.
I don't think so. You know, you can't have, woodchucks can't
But
live
the
in
solar
a...
panels might leak electricity into the ground.
They might. Oh my gosh! And they'd put poisons in the ground and poison all the woodchucks and the groundwater. Actually, by the way, I don't know if you notice it, but off on the left of that, it looks like the ground goes down.
Yeah,
So
it does.
it looks to me like there is a little river or stream that goes by that. And that would typically be, you know, the actual permitting of this thing would take all of that, the groundwater, the whole thing into account. But I will point out, a woodchuck could live in that solar farm, but he would not be able to live in a gravel pit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, I mean, there it is. So anyway.
I'm trying to look at that thing on the side. It looks like that's where the transmission line is.
On the left side.
On the left, yeah.
Yeah, on the right side, there's a road and transmission
a road
line.
on the right side, yeah.
And then on the left, it looks like the ground drops off.
Ground does definitely drop off,
Yeah.
yep.
So, should we go on?
Why not?
We're up to grist.
Ah, this is our buddy Trump again.
Oh, man.
Trump wants to keep burning coal for 1,000 years.
Oh, there you go, Trump. Why don't you just burn some coal, Donald? But burn it in your own backyard. Clinton and Trump sparred over energy and climate for 243 seconds in the second presidential debate. The majority of Sunday's presidential debate involved two candidates trading blows on tax returns. Donald Trump's so-called locker room talk about assaulting women and Hillary Clinton's email account.
So they really focused on the issues, didn't they?
They focused on the important issues that we're going to have to look at going ahead, but they did spend 243 seconds on climate change and energy, which is better than listening to Donald Trump's locker room talk, which, by the way, that same talk appears in books that he wrote, or at least books that he says he wrote.
Uh-huh.
And you know, appeared in a bunch of other places too. And he's had accusations from women who.
Oh, there's more of them coming out every day.
Every day, yeah.
Wow.
I don't even want to talk about that. It's revolting.
Let's
Okay.
move to Germany.
Germany and Clean Technica. What do you got there, Tom?
Germany steps it up. Calls for a ban on gas and diesel cars by 2030.
Wow, Germany's. Yeah.
This is publicity. It ain't gonna happen.
You think so? I bet it does.
You think?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I think this will happen. Germany's Bundesrat approved a resolution calling for a ban on new internal combustion engine cars by 2030. That's new cars. They'll keep the old ones going. Bundesrat is a deliberative body composed of representatives from all 16 states. It is sometimes wrongly called the upper house of parliament, but legislation has to go through it on the way to the Bundestag. Got that?
Yep.
Okay. Bundestag comes from Bund, which means united or federal, and Tag means day. And if you think about the word diet, the Japanese have a diet as a parliament.
Yeah.
That is
I remember
related.
studying history about the diet of worms.
The diet of worms. That's right. Or in German, the diet of worms is.
Worms.
But it relates to the fact that the Bundesrat, which is the federal advising body, in the old days met one day a year.
Uh-huh.
So that's why it's called the Bundestag. It's the day that they met, but of course it isn't a day. It's all year long now.
Well, I bet you the Bundesrat has something to do with the German word Rathaus.
It sure does.
Yeah.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
The Rathaus and the Ratskeller is the cellar of a Rathaus. And the Rathaus is not the rat house. It's the house where advice was given or the government was taken care of. Now, what they're saying is they want to stop allowing new internal combustion engine cars to be sold by 2030. And my bet is that it'll actually happen before that.
Well, from the article, and this just backs me up.
Yep.
The resolution approved by the Bundesrat may be nothing more than a suggestion.
That's
but
right.
it represents a dramatic shift in attitude away from conventional cars.
That's right.
To a future of electric vehicles with no emissions.
Yeah, and it had to go through the Bundesrat to get to the Bundestag.
Get there. And they're saying that the impact on German car companies will be profound.
Well, yeah, I mean, they would stop building gasoline and diesel-powered engines.
Bingo.
Bingo. But, you know, they're by 2030, are you kidding me? The way that, with the pace of technology improvements now, I would think that they'd say,
just
what do
for
we need these
economic
for?
reasons
Just
at all. Yeah.
long before then, I would bet that by 2025, they would be saying, I don't want to do that. Okay, here's a very pretty picture. This is from Tuesday, October 11th, and it comes from the Sonoma Index Tribune. And that's what you do with mountaintops. Instead of putting wind turbines up there, you can put one of these up. Isn't that pretty?
That's a thermal plant, isn't it?
It sure is.
Sonoma goes greener with new evergreen, in quotes, utility plan.
Yeah, taking a small step into the energy future, the city of Sonoma, California voted last week to become the first jurisdiction in Sonoma County and perhaps in the North Bay to adopt the Zero Emissions Evergreen Plan for Sonoma Clean Power. The optional premium plan uses 100% local renewable power sources, and local is important here, and renewable is important. But what they have in California, we could actually do geothermal power in Vermont, but we don't want to, I don't think, because
there's a few places where there's some hot.
There are. You can actually get this almost anywhere by using a thing called enhanced geothermal, and we could get about 6 times as much electricity as we need from enhanced geothermal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but enhanced geothermal involves a thing called hydro. No, not hydro. It's
something like fracking.
It's, well, basically it is fracking, except that it's not as extensive, but it does cause earthquakes. And there's no question about that from what I understand. There was a big plant that was put together in Switzerland and it started causing earthquakes, so they shut it down. And near Basel. We could do that in Vermont, but I don't think we want to. This is not enhanced geothermal. This is in California where they've got a hot spot. And as you said, we have hot spots in Vermont, but I don't think that they should be used for
there's a place
energy.
I remember seeing, 20 odd years ago, maybe more than that,
Yeah.
up near Chester.
Yeah.
Where about a dozen homes
Yeah.
were all built by the same builder.
Yeah.
They're all thermally heated from the ground.
Right. And you can do that. And what we're talking about here, when we're talking about thermal heating, is not geothermal heating, which is a different thing, using geothermal heat pumps, I should say. This is geothermal heating, not using heat pumps, just using the heat.
They got hot water out of the ground.
They get hot water out of the ground. Now, anywhere in Vermont, you could use geothermal heat pumps, and they are the most efficient.
They'll work anywhere.
They'll work anywhere, and they are or almost anywhere, and they are the cheapest way to work to get heat for a house once you've got them in. They're expensive to put in.
Build.
But there's air source heat pumps that can do the job also, and they're much
pretty
less
effective.
They're actually less expensive than a new oil heater in some places.
Well, I'm sure they are.
And they're far less expensive to run. They may be even cheaper than cordwood. I don't know, but they're pretty close.
The new building being built by the Housing Authority is heated by
well,
not geothermal, but it's air source heat pumps.
Yeah. Okay.
And as a sideline, you get air conditioning.
Yes, that's one of the things you can get out of air source heat pumps. Okay, BBC.
Oil price lifted by Russia, backing OPEC production team.
Do you suppose that Russia wants more money?
I think so.
I think so. 65% of Russia's export trade is in fossil fuels. 65%.
65, that's a significant amount.
Yeah, when the price of gas is low, when the price of oil is low, and when the price of coal is low, Russia suffers.
Well, there are those that say that the price of oil is low because of that very reason.
Yeah, because the Saudis didn't want to let the Russians make a whole lot of money.
Basically, yeah. But I think the Saudis were maybe edged on to do that by a few people in America.
Well, the Saudis also had their own reasons for wanting to do it. Their oil minister, who was in the head of their oil ministry in about 2001, said recently that about a year ago or more, he said that he was pretty sure that the reason they were pumping oil as fast as they could was because they wanted to sell it while they could.
Well, they still had a good price. Yeah, I've heard that.
All right, Russia has said it will support a proposal by OPEC to freeze oil production in order to reverse the slump in global prices. The move lifts the price of oil, with Brent crude hitting a one-year high. In late afternoon, Brent crude oil was trading up by 2.5% at $53.21 a barrel, just off from the $53.73 hit earlier that day on Monday. Now,
I remember when it was over 100.
Yeah, and more recently it went
down
just
to 40 something.
Dipped below 30.
Below 30.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a serious problem for a lot of people. This is going to be somewhat beneficial to a number of countries that have had some problems, notably, possibly, Venezuela. But
yeah, Venezuela's got some
the people in Venezuela are just having terrible problems because 90% of their income came from the sale of oil and gas. So, what can you say? That was in the BBC. Our next item is from Costa Rica News, and this is cool.
Wait a second.
Wait a second.
I'm playing with the wrong mouse here.
That's okay.
Oh, I got the picture up.
You got the picture up. Now you've got the picture up twice.
How did I do that?
I don't know. Okay. What do you got for a title on this, Tom?
Okay, let's go. Let's back this one up a little bit. Costa Rica has run on 100% renewable energy for 299 days.
Yep, for almost 300 days, the country of Costa Rica has run on a combination of hydropower, geothermal, wind, and solar energy. It has not used any fossil fuels. No other country of its size or larger has come close to this. For example, Portugal was recently praised in the news for running on 100% renewables for 4 days. Okay.
That's an interesting picture, isn't it?
Isn't that a beautiful picture? Yeah, it's very pretty. Very pretty picture. And if you watch those wind turbines going around, they have a very restful appearance unless you're afraid of them. If you're afraid of them, their appearance is not restful. Should we move from that beautiful site?
It's a nice shot.
Okay, we don't have any more pictures. We are up to
we're at the last day.
Last day, Wednesday, October 12th. And we're talking about Clean Technica here as the source.
Okay, low carbon sectors growing, encouraging productive economies. This is an interesting article.
It sure is. A study from the London School of Economics examining 34 developed and developing countries for their carbon intensity has found that low carbon sectors are outpacing their less productive, higher carbon intensive sectors and the general economic in terms of growth, while increased jobs and skill levels. In other words, we're moving to renewables and it's good for everybody except those who are married to or employed by
the energy.
Fossil fuels.
Fossil energy, yeah.
Which is why the Republican Party has been getting so much money from various organizations that are heavily involved in fossil fuels. They want to stop that in the United States. And by the way, interesting item in the news today, which we're not going to talk about, China has an economy that's bigger than the United States.
I didn't know that.
China is outspending the United States by more than 2 to 1 installing renewable energy.
Yeah, but we got to buy all those guns.
China is installing more wind power than the rest of the world combined.
Yeah.
And, item in the news today, China has more billionaires than the United States.
That's interesting.
Isn't it?
A communist country with billionaires?
Yeah. Well, I've always said I thought that China was the most capitalist country in the world. Because even under Mao Zedong, if you looked closely at what was going on there, nobody believed it. Mm-hmm. He had to have a purge every once in a while to keep everybody in line. But, it was always a matter of let's do what's best for our family. And what's happening is the Republican Party, people involved in the Republican Party, the people who have, in my opinion, bought the Republican Party, which includes Donald Trump, but it's the rank and file people running for Congress have been paid for by the fossil fuels industry and people involved in that. They're holding the United States back. And the result of that is going to be we are being outpaced by China. by China, economically, militarily, in almost every respect. 15 years from now, they're going to be energy independent on renewable energy, and they're not going to have to worry about who owns the coal.
Well, part of that was seemingly deliberate. I mean, you take a trip on Amtrak down in New York City.
Yep.
You go through all these little towns in Connecticut.
Yep.
And they're almost all ghost towns, empty factories.
Well, the factories, yeah.
The factories are in China.
Yeah, they're in China. What about that? We've been allowing our work to go to China. We've been allowing our intellect to go to China. We've been allowing our money to go to China. Now China is more powerful than the United States in all those respects. And it's building up its navy, and it's building up its air force, and it's building up its army, and it's building up its ability to produce fuel independently of any considerations for payment for fuel, among other things. This renewable power, they don't have to pay for energy. In the United States, we're going to have to pay for energy.
I'm sure they have some oil, but they don't have a heck of a lot.
They've got a lot of coal.
Coal they do have, yep.
And they're ditching the coal.
Yep.
The capacity factor of their coal plants has gone below 50%. There are wind farms in the ocean that have capacity factors above 50%. So their baseload plants are producing less efficiently than offshore wind farms. I mean, the world has changed, guys. It's not the way that it was anymore. Let's face it. But the Republicans are being told by the Pentagon that we've got to stop climate change. And what do they say? That isn't happening. That isn't happening. We're being sold out, ladies and gentlemen. We're being sold out by people who claim to be conservative Americans. And remember, I voted Republican in this last presidential nomination. Okay, should we get away from that mess?
Yeah, let's get away from that. You're getting angry.
I'm not getting angry. I'm just getting carried away. This is from The Guardian.
We'll move to Australia.
Australia. Yeah, I get angry.
They have their own problems.
They have their own problems, and it's because the same people.
Very, very similar.
They aren't Republicans. Sure. They're coalitionists. Go ahead.
Queensland can reach its 50% renewables target by 2030, say experts.
Whoa! Queensland has 3 credible options to achieve a 50% renewable energy target by 2030, according to a panel of experts. A draft report said significant government policy action would be needed for Australia's largest carbon polluting state to reach the target, but the impact on electric prices would be broadly cost neutral.
That's interesting. Cost neutral.
Yeah, we can have clean air and get energy for free, and it costs less, or the same amount at most.
Well, according to this report, there's 3 steps that they need to accomplish. They need to enforce to accomplish the target. A national emissions intensity scheme.
Yes.
Okay, so that's sort of like carbon taxing or something like that.
Yes.
A steady increase in renewable generation.
Yes.
That's almost a duh.
Yeah.
Okay, and a ramp up closer to 2030 to take advantage of cheaper technology. So what they're saying is we'll delay this till it gets a little bit cheaper.
Well, it's getting cheaper all the time, so delay it until today. What can I say?
And there's a takeaway here. Queensland, which is what this article is about, is the highest emitter of carbon pollution of all the Australian states.
Yes, and Australia is a fairly high emitter of carbon pollution.
And electricity generation is the largest single source of those emissions.
Right.
So it is therefore imperative that renewable energy generation is made a high priority in Queensland.
Right.
It looks like it is being done as we speak.
Yes. Although the coalition government is saying, the problems they had in South Australia resulted from the fact that there was wind power. And the reason was because that storm blew over the power lines in 3 different places in 10 seconds. Same 10 seconds.
Well, we saw some pictures of
those
towers
on
the ground.
And a report came out that said, you had 3 big power failures inside of 10 seconds. And when that happened, the wind turbines all went offline because they would wind up getting fried if they hadn't, which a coal burning plant would have done too.
Yeah.
And then what happened was there wasn't enough capacity for the transmission lines coming in from the state of Victoria, and so the whole state of South Australia went without power. And for hours, it's I don't know how long it took for the last people to get their power back, but that was a huge disaster. But it was a storm, and it would have happened no matter whether they were using wind power or not. Okay, our last item is from Utility Dive.
Now this is an important one too. This is very interesting. Solar company launches megawatt scale energy storage division.
Yeah, Borrego Solar Systems has launched a new division focused on megawatt scale energy storage solutions, both standalone and tied to solar installations. The new storage division will be based in Massachusetts. Hey, I've been there. And will serve customers nationally. Borrego will focus on long-duration energy storage for the power grid.
Megawatt scale.
Megawatt scale. There it is.
Either going to be large collections of batteries or some other means of storing energy.
Yeah. This I believe is basically batteries.
I think it's batteries, yep.
It's batteries. But they're talking about doing this and having this all over the place. So this is a company that is doing something that's kind of like Tesla.
Very much so.
And is producing something kind of like the Powerwall, but is planning this for a utility scale service all over the country, so that we can balance the grid. And
so they're not going to be selling these things to homeowners. They're going to be selling these things to utilities. Yes.
But one thing that we should mention about this balancing the grid, it drives me crazy to think about the business of solar and power intermittent, so we need to have something to balance the grid. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Baseload power plants, nuclear plants, coal plants, natural gas combined cycle plants are so inflexible that they need to have backup to balance the grid.
Well, we have them.
We have them.
Peaking plants.
Peaking plants. And
they're expensive to run.
They're really expensive to run. And that's why the cost of electricity, wholesale cost of electricity goes up when demand goes up. It's because when you get to...
They're buying peak power.
They're buying peak power. And the people at Green Mountain Power were complaining about the fact that they had to pay 60 cents a kilowatt hour. It was, I think, the winter before last, when it was really cold in the winter, because there was an increased demand for electricity. And 60 cents per kilowatt hour is a high price. They were losing.
They're not getting that from their customers.
No, they aren't. They were losing 30. They were losing 45 cents per kilowatt hour.
That's about right.
Every time a customer bought a kilowatt hour for 15 cents, the power company lost 45 cents.
Yeah.
And they've got to make that up in the mix. If you can bring in things that give it power during that time, when the peak is there, it saves money for everybody, even if the power company is paying extra for that peak power. And that's important because during the summer, the worst power demand is when everybody wants to have his air conditioner on.
When the photovoltaic is working
By
real nice.
golly, and that was why Green Mountain Power started saying we needed net metering years ago.
Yeah.
That was something that Green Mountain Power introduced.
Yeah.
And so...
and the wind turbines work best at night.
The wind turbines work best at night, and especially best in the winter, where solar is best in the daytime, and especially in the summer. And it happens that you do need to have other sources of power. You can't do it on just solar and wind. But
and of course, storage is something we've totally neglected. I mean,
well, when we were putting in Vermont Yankee, we put in the
pump storage plant.
Pump storage plant in Northfield, the Northfield Mountain plant, which has an output double Vermont Yankees. Why did that go in? It's because you can't do it with Vermont Yankee alone. Baseload power is a myth in terms of its ability to meet demand. It just isn't there. But people who are against renewable energy will claim that there is a problem with renewable energy in that regard.
And when they built the hydro plants all along the Deerfield River back in the 30s and 40s, I guess it was, they built pump storage down in Reedsboro.
The first pumped storage plant went in, as I recall, in the 1920s in Connecticut.
Yeah.
This is
yeah.
an old plant, and it's
On the
still
Housatonic
going.
River.
It's still going.
Yeah.
I mean, why are we trying to delay renewable energy coming in? Well, it's because
There's
there
still
are
oil and gas to sell, man.
yeah, they got gas to sell, and they don't. You know, they're worried about the bottom line next quarter, and that's what they're worried about. And
It
if the
looks like,
Chinese are better off
we've
than
run
we
out
are,
of time here, it
15
looks
years,
like, or at least we've run out of things to talk about.
we've run out of things to talk about. So I think what we should do is say goodbye.
Strong as
I'll buy that.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
I wanna hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.